let's go back to the game plans. Because like I said, everybody wants to talk about the concepts and the players and their feelings about the game. Let's talk about the X's and O's. Let's talk about the approach and the plan of attack for Michigan and TCU in the Fiesta Bowl. This is a true tale of two styles. You got TCU, which is high-flying, wheeling and dealing, scoring a lot of points kind of offense. Max Duggan was in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony, deservedly so. Sonny Dykes and his MO have allowed this offense and this program to be really explosive. On the other side, you got Michigan, who is just hard hat, lunch pail, blue collar. We're the bullies. You're going to have to deal with us today. J.J. McCarthy said it post-game in the Ohio State victory press conference where he just said it's like the pipes burst at some point. We're going to wear on you. We're going to wear on you. We're going to wear on you. We're going to keep applying that pressure. And at some point, we believe you're going to crack. We believe those pipes are going to burst. So when it comes to what Michigan's doing on offense, what TCU's doing on defense, let's set the table here a little bit. We'll start with the Wolverines. The mantra in my mind when watching the tape of this Michigan offense is we do us. Like, you could line up in whatever you want, and we're going to run our same stuff. So that's not to say Michigan doesn't have answers for different defenses, and they don't have schemes and game plans and all that. But the reality is they're going to be, at least in the early going, a tone-setting kind of offense. So what you can expect when watching Michigan at home, they're going to run a whole lot of power and inside zone. I'll start with power. Power, to give it its most simplistic explanation, is we're going to hand the ball to our running back. And while that's happening, we're going to have one of our offensive linemen, most notably the guard, pulling out, getting around the corner, and coming full speed ahead at your linebacker. It is a man blocking scheme, meaning I, as a man, got that man. You, as a man, got that man. You got that man. You got that man. So there's a personal responsibility for who you're supposed to block. And you only call that if you like your man better than their man. And for Michigan, they have made it abundantly clear they will take their big boys over your big boys 9 times out of 10. Let me say that again. They will take them 11 times out of 10. I forgot there was 3 times counted in for on Saturday. So that would factor into, yeah, that fraction works out well. Okay, but you get the point here. Michigan is going to make it a point to run the football downhill at you a lot of this game. For inside zone, it's really the same attitude, just a different way to do it. They're going to, as a unit, just take you out of your gap. They're going to take you against your will where you want to be and allow their running back to sort out the mess. That's the most simplistic way to say it. There's a lot of X's and O's that go into that, but that's really what it boils down to. It's a tone-setting thing. It is an asserting your will kind of thing if you're Michigan. So the reason why I think they're becoming more and more dangerous, and those of you that have watched a lot of Michigan football can attest to this, they're starting to develop that other level, that other counterpunch, if you will. They've always had the right hook. They could throw that a lot of the time and beat most people. But to win games now in the college football playoff and how they beat Ohio State and how they can compete for a national title is being able to have the pass game involved a little bit more. And for TCU, we'll get to them in a second, but they are really aggressive and creative with how they use those safeties. They play 3 of them in the game. And the reason why that's important, when you have 3 safeties on the field, more often than not, one of those guys is rolling up to try and help on the run. And so what I expect to happen in this game for Michigan in the past game, I think they're going to challenge those safeties just a little bit. They're going to take the apron, put it on J.J. McCarthy, give him a nice little chef's hat, and let him cook. Let J.J. cook a little bit in this game. I think that's something that you could end up seeing because if you don't challenge those safeties at all, they're going to try to add in and add in and add in and continue to roll up and try and be a factor and crowd that box and make that picture murky for your offensive line. Now, Michigan, I want to make this clear. They will run the football at you until it doesn't work. You could very, very easily see J.J. McCarthy have like 15 attempts in this game if TCU doesn't stop the run. But again, if J.J. McCarthy can keep them honest on the back end and cause those safeties to think twice about how close they're playing to the line and how quickly they're triggering on the run, that would be advantage Michigan 1,000,000%. So that's what Michigan's going to do on offense. Also, don't be surprised if Colston Loveland lines up in some funky places. In the Big Ten championship game, they lined him up at fullback, snuck him out on a wheel route. And the reason that's important is because depending on where players lined up, it dictates who the defense can cover. And when you're lined up at fullback, either the defense just doesn't really account for you, or you end up on an advantageous matchup. And for Colston Loveland, he's a big boy, about 6'4", 6'5", and he can run as a tight end. Keep an eye on where they line him up at, because I think he's going to have a big impact on this game and how they get him the football creatively. So on the flip side of things, when TCU is on defense, they run a 3-3-5. We're not here to get super football nerdy with you because that's just difficult to do, quite frankly, in regards to talking about it. But the reality is when you run a 3-3-5 defense, that is confusing because you have 3 defensive linemen, you have 3 linebackers, and you have 5 defensive backs. Now, traditional football would have you rushing 4 people. So you have those 3 down linemen, they're going to rush the quarterback. Well, guess what? There is one more person that is likely going to come from somewhere on that defense and try to attack the quarterback. And it's tricky for the offense because you don't know who that 4th guy is going to be. It could be one of those 5 defensive backs. It could be one of those linebackers. You don't know. It's a guessing game. So that's why it's going to be interesting to watch what TCU does, because they're going to try and confuse J.J. McCarthy. Sonny Dykes said as much. We got to stop the run, and if we can stop the run, make the quarterback beat us, that's how we want to live. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's how Sonny Dykes feels about his football team. So expect a whole lot of safety movement with the safety rolling down at the snap, or maybe he's dropping back at the snap, or just doing a bunch of funky things. And then on top of that, they're going to use that safety to, I would venture to say, a frequent amount of the time, crowd the box. Now you say, what is the box, JD? Use all this lingo. What is the box? It's not the song, but it is, however, that 3 to 4 yards of space from the offensive and defensive line to the linebackers. It's like an imaginary rectangle, if you will, that you draw around that defensive line up to where the linebackers are. So you're going to roll an extra person into that box to just have more bodies to try and stop Michigan's run game. They've made no negotiations about it. They're going to try to stop the run and make J.J. McCarthy beat you. It's a tall task, but TCU, I'll tell you what, with Joe Gillespie, they're pretty aggressive on defense, and they are fairly exotic on defense, and they've had this chip on their shoulder mentality the entirety of their season. They've had this whole, you don't believe in us, we don't really care. Spoiler alert, we don't really care. That's going to be the same kind of approach they take in this game defensively. So keep an eye on that. The linebackers for TCU, the verbiage we use in the football world is they're going to play downhill. Think about it this way. When you're running down a hill, it doesn't matter how much you try to stop, your momentum's carrying you forward. You are going to get down that hill pretty quickly. That's the same kind of style that this linebacking core is going to play for TCU. They're going to trigger quickly, and they are going to trust their keys, and they are going to get after that running back and get after that run play as quickly as possible to minimize the damage. So they've watched tape too. They saw what Michigan did to the rest of the country. That's going to be what they try and stop. So the reason why that's interesting, if it works, changes the entire game, right? Then it plays the kind of style that TCU wants to play, which I'm not here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about whether J.J. McCarthy can beat you or not. I think that's a little bit foolish to think that's the only way you could win this football game. But I would just say this. If they don't play assignment sound football, if they misread the gap, and they think, okay, it's going outside, and they run outside, and really quickly it becomes an inside play, and you're out of position. When you trigger downhill quickly, you have not much time to recover. So meaning if you trigger quickly, you had better be right. So diagnosing the play and reading the keys effectively, meaning I know what the play is as it happens and I trust what I'm seeing here because of what I saw on tape, that's going to be paramount for TCU if they want to play quickly downhill to try and stop the run. You with me? If you haven't yet subscribed, we got you covered, baby. Now is the time. You love college football. Guess what? We do too. We love college football just like you, man. And this is the time to make sure you're locked in with us. Make sure you're subscribed because we got a ton of content coming downhill at you, just like those TCU linebackers, okay? So, playoffs about to happen. National championship's going to happen. And then it's recruiting season, as it has been for the last however many months. I shouldn't say it's going to be. It's going to continue to be recruiting season, transfer portal season, turning up the heat. Don't want you to miss anything, so subscribe. Also, follow me on the socials at JD Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. A lot of interaction. You can put it in the show. The best part of this whole thing we do, okay? When Michigan's on defense, that's where I think this is going to be kind of the tale of how this game goes. Because we know TCU's explosive offensively. Sonny Dykes is an offensive guy. They're scoring around 40 points a game. TCU can score some. So if Michigan can minimize that and then get what they want in the run game, that's the recipe, right? That's the recipe that they beat Ohio State with. That would be the recipe that they could beat TCU with. Here's the wrinkle. Max Duggan for TCU is a really good runner, really good athlete, and you saw the game against Kansas State. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's not afraid to run downhill at you. He's not afraid to use contact and try to beat you with his athleticism. That's who he is. And so when you have a quarterback who is such an athletic threat and who can run as well as him, you need to do what I like to call a spy. I say what I like to call, like I invented the term. You should do what the football world calls a spy. And what does that mean? It just means on a pass play, we always have one guy sitting probably in the middle of the field somewhere, at a linebacker more often than not. Could be a safety in this scenario. You have one guy responsible for Max Duggan. So I don't have too much pass responsibility. I can help on that. I can help in the run game. But my job is to follow Max Duggan. He goes left, I go left. He rolls to his right, I roll to my right. If he goes to TGI Fridays, guess what, baby? Get us a booth. We're going to TGI Fridays, all right? That's my responsibility if I'm spying Max Duggan. So I think that's crucial, because if he's able to get loose and you don't keep an eye on him with his legs, it's going to hurt you. He's made a habit of it all year long, and he is dangerous enough to where that could be the kind of game that TCU would win if you don't bottle him up with his dual threat capabilities. The other thing you got to do if you're Michigan, and what I expect them to do, they're going to play a lot of man coverage. And I'm not saying this so much from an opinion standpoint. It's just what they do. And you say, well, we got Quentin Johnston, right? He's going to be a guy that plays in the NFL for a long time. He is an absolute baller. Yes, I agree with you. So was Marvin Harrison Jr., and they were content to just play on the outside with him. They're going to be physical. They're going to put their hands on him at the line of scrimmage. And similar to what we said Georgia's going to do in the red zone, Michigan's going to do that a lot of the game. Doesn't matter if it's just in the red zone or not. They're going to play man coverage. So why that's important is because when you're in man coverage, you are able to trigger better on those short passes. Specifically, I'm talking about the bubble screens. And TCU does a really good job at this. Get the ball out to your playmakers in the space. Tay Barber or Quentin Johnston. Or, insert any athletic player they have here. They get the ball to him in space and let him cook. Let him work. When you're playing man coverage, you're able to engage with that block quicker. You have your eyes in a better spot because you're looking right at that receiver instead of looking back at the quarterback. And then you're able to trigger quicker on making a tackle. Okay, so it's supposed to minimize the sort of dink and dunk space plays that TCU is going to try and make. Now, the danger with that is when you're so aggressive in playing man coverage, similar to what I said about getting downhill for the TCU linebackers, if those Michigan defensive backs trigger too quickly, well, then that's just playing right into Sonny Dykes and Max Duggan's hands. Then they can just get a little double move, get a little fake screen and go, and you are just running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You're just seeing color and running to it instead of actually diagnosing the play. So there's a method to the madness a little bit, but keep an eye on that back and forth between the TCU receiving corps and the Michigan secondary, because they are going to let those guys play. I'm just telling you right now, they are going to trust the physical ability and the ball skills of their playmakers on both sides, really. Max Duggan's going to put it up, and Michigan and their defensive backs are going to let their guys play, which I love. I think that's what it comes down to in games like this is personnel, but they're going to let them have it out, okay? Lastly, the TCU offense, we kind of already alluded to it. They are going to test the waters. They know that Michigan's going to play some man coverage, and they're okay with that. Hey, if we lose because you had better players than us, because you just matched up better on the outside, so be it. Now, on top of that, they're going to feed Kendre Miller, but I think it's going to be more so a pass to set up the run scenario. They're going to try and loosen up that front seven of Michigan, that linebacking group, and that defensive line of Michigan. Try to loosen the box up a little bit and then take some shots while doing that, but then hand it to Kendre Miller. Have the inside zone stuff. That's going to be kind of their bread and butter, I believe. So pass first, run second, and then finally, here's the biggest thing I'm going to say for TCU when you're watching this football game. When it's 4th and goal, game's on the line, and TCU's got one play. If it's a short yardage play, I would 1,000,000% expect them to put the ball in Max Duggan's hands. Now, that could be a rollout play, but I'm thinking more specifically, I expect a ton of quarterback design runs from Max Duggan. You heard what I said about spying him. That's going to be a thing when the play breaks down. But for TCU, you are in the playoff for a reason. And that reason, where's number 15? So when the game's on the line, you didn't do it in the Big 12 title game, you're not making that same mistake twice. You're letting 15 go ahead and try and win the game for you. He's going to have his impact on this game, both running the football and throwing the football, and you're going to make sure his legs have an impact because you're going to call a fair amount of design runs. So Michigan, the reason why that's interesting is because when you have a quarterback design run, guess what you have? An extra blocker. Because in a running back run play, you have one player that's not blocking anybody, and that's the quarterback. He's turning around, handing the ball off to the running back, probably watching the play, carrying out a fake, whatever it is. On a quarterback design run, you have Kendre Miller or whoever the running back is probably lead blocking or playing a factor in helping take away one more defender. So that's another reason why you like it. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be similar to what I said about the other football game, high entertainment value. I think it'll be back and forth in a chess game in the beginning of the game. But those are the game plans in my mind for both Michigan offensively and defensively, and then the Horned Frogs of TCU on both sides of the football as well. Should be a whole lot of fun. We'll be locked in for it. You better believe it. But that's how I see those game plans shaking out on New Year's Eve. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.